People flock to U.S. cities to take in a piece of their iconic culture. From world-famous attractions to iconic landmarks, there's so much to take on. But behind the shadows of these American cities is a web of notorious gangs and crime syndicates. Their brutal tactics and violent reputations have left an impact on society. In today's video, we're going to delve into the world of 10 notorious gangs that are still active in the U.S. today. Throughout the years, law enforcement has refined its efforts to crack down on organized crime. They have put an end to many notorious gangs, but there are several with an influence so strong that even the best FBI agents face hurdles bringing them to justice. From notorious gangs like Crips and Bloods to smaller outlaw gangs like Mongols Motorcycle Club, these are 10 gangs that are believed to still be active in the U.S. and other parts of the world today. Let's start off with a protection group that took things too far: the Jewish Defense League. At first glance, the Jewish Defense League may not seem like a gang. The group was founded in 1968 by Rabbi Meir Kahane with the goal of advocating for Jewish protection and against anti-Semitism. Sure, this might sound like a good cause, but his intentions were much darker. They were determined to protect the Jewish people by any means possible, which in most cases meant violent actions. They were known to take violent and radical actions against people who were perceived as enemies of Jewish people. JDL's influence was most prominent throughout the 1970s. Over the years, they have been accused of many terrorist attacks. These attacks range from assassinations to bombings and many other horrendous actions. Many of these attacks were against Arabs living in the US and Europe. The group even launched training camps to prepare JDL activists for their missions. They would learn about Jewish nationalism, use firearms, and train for hand-to-hand combat. The gang's support began to decline throughout the 1980s. On November 5, 1990, Rabbi Meir Kahane was assassinated after giving a speech at the New York Marriott Eastside Hotel. JDL remained active after its founder's death. However, participation was nowhere near what it used to be. Throughout the early 2000s, rallies were held, but there were rarely more than a dozen people to show up. In 2014, news broke that the gang would be opening branches throughout Canada as clashes between pro-Israel and pro-Palestine supporters fostered conflict. While the group may not be as large as it was during Rabbi Meir Kahane's era, it's still active. Members of the group have been spotted at pro-Palestine events in Canada throughout 2024. Next on our list is MS-13, aka Mara Salvatrucha. Similar to the Jewish Defense League, this group originated to provide protection for Salvadoran immigrants against other gangs. The group emerged in Los Angeles in the 1980s. While it began in the US, over the years, the membership has expanded globally. It's now believed to have somewhere between 30 and 50,000 members. Now, since this gang is on our list, you can guarantee they didn't stay as only a protective group. Since the gang was initially formed, they quickly branched out into criminal activities and earned a reputation as a violent criminal organization. MS-13 is believed to be involved in a number of illegal activities, such as human trafficking, auto theft, weapons trafficking, prostitution, murder, and many other illegal operations. They're also believed to be allies with other notorious gangs, like the Sinaloa Cartel and Gulf Cartel, just to name a few. MS-13 has a brutal reputation for their violent tactics. They follow a moral code based on merciless retribution. Allegedly, when new members join this game, they have to take part in a beat-in. This is when they are beaten for 13 seconds straight by other gang members. Allegedly, the Futon Clique, a faction of MS-13, required aspiring members to commit murder before they could officially be brought into the gang. In 2023, 11 members of MS-13 were placed on the FBI's Most Wanted list. In 2024, 2 of these members were captured. Freddy Ivan Yandres Parada was captured by the FBI in March in San Diego. Cesar Humberto Lopez Lario was captured in Texas in June. Currently, the government is offering thousands of dollars for any information that could lead to the arrest of the other members. Next on our list is one of the largest street gangs in Chicago, the Vice Lords. What's disappointing about this gang is that they weren't always known for violence and crime. When the group first originated in 1958, the goal was to help African Americans overcome hardships, like poverty and discrimination. But many of the group members knew each other from time spent at a juvenile correctional facility. Over time, tensions grew and conflicts arose. The group eventually started participating in illegal activities and eventually grew to become one of the largest U.S. criminal organizations. It's estimated that the Vice Lords has roughly 30,000 to 35,000 gang members. They have been involved in various criminal activities, from extortion to murder. The gang is no stranger to white-collar crimes either, like money laundering, mortgage fraud, and credit card fraud. The gang also has an alliance system. This keeps members protected while they're in prison. It's believed that vice lords have a stronger alliance in the prison than they do on the streets. While many members have been arrested over the years, there are still plenty of challenges for law enforcement to put this gang to rest. After all, the vice lords have always excelled at being a step ahead in the world of crime. The next gang on our list is Barrio Azteca. They formed in 1986 inside an El Paso prison for protection and solidarity among Hispanic inmates. But it didn't take long for their influence to expand outside the prison. Barrio Azteca became present in various other states outside Texas as well, including Massachusetts, New Mexico, and Pennsylvania. Throughout the 1990s, the gang expanded its activities. They were involved in drug trafficking and became allies with the Juarez cartel. In the early 2000s, they supported the Juarez cartel in their rivalry against the Sinaloa cartel, which became a very brutal and bloody fight. Over the years, many of the Barrio Azteca members have been arrested or killed. This has led to a decline in members and severely weakened its influence. It's believed now that there are roughly 3,000 members throughout the US and 5,000 in Mexico, making it one of the smallest gangs on our list. One of the most violent gangs that is still operating in California is the Mongols Motorcycle Club. The gang was originally formed in 1969 in East Los Angeles. The original chapter only had 15 members, but it didn't take long for the club to grow. Within a 5-year period, there were factions extended in various cities throughout California, including LA, Bakersfield, San Diego, Long Beach, San Fernando Valley, and San Gabriel Valley. By the mid-1970s, they were known as an outlaw gang and began to recruit inmates. However, it wasn't until the 1980s and 1990s when their violent reputation took over. The motorcycle gang became known for assault and intimidation tactics. They also have a history of drug operations, robbery, firearms violations, and murder, among many other crimes. Law enforcement has categorized Mongols Motorcycle Club as one of the Big Five in reference to powerful motorcycle gangs throughout the US. In 2002, a lot of heat was brought on this gang when they were involved in a shootout with rival biker gang Hells Angels. This was one of their more high-profile cases. There was also a lot of attention brought back to them in March 2024 when local San Bernardino Sheriff's Deputy Christopher Bingham was accused of being a member. Could the gang's connection with members of law enforcement have something to do with why they are still a prominent force today? For the next section of this video, we're going to delve into the background of two notorious gangs who are best known for their rivalry, the Crips and Bloods. While the exact origin of these gangs is widely debated, it's believed that the Crips was formed in LA in 1971 by Raymond Washington and Stanley Tukey Williams. They were a neighborhood protection gang that quickly evolved into a violent street gang. The more members that joined, the more threatening this crew became. This is essential to how the Bloods were known to form as well. With the rising threat of the Crips, a new gang needed to be established for territory protection. Both gangs have specific ways of representing themselves, including hand signs and colors. Over the years, the long-standing rivalry has led to a string of violent conflicts and shootouts. A lot of this has to do with territory and reputation. However, it's also believed that personal conflicts have come into play as well. While the rivalry between these gangs is still standing strong today, there have been movements in recent years that brought members together. The BLM movement in 2020 served as a unification of Crips and Bloods as they came together to support the protests. The year prior, there were peace talks after the death of rap artist Nipsey Hussle. Recently, in June 2024, Crips and Bloods also united on stage for the Kendrick Lamar pop-out concert in LA. When there is an important cause, these two gangs can put their issues aside and come together. Next on our list is a large gang that currently is one of the most powerful in the US. This gang was formed in Chicago in the 1960s. They are known to operate under two umbrella factions, the King Motherland Chicago and Bloodlines. It's believed that throughout the US, there are roughly 20,000 to 35,000 members. The gang has been known for various high-profile crimes throughout the decades, including the assassination of law enforcement. They've been involved in money laundering, identity theft, robbery, and many other crimes. The gang also has connections to various Mexican cartels through drug trafficking. One of the biggest challenges this large gang holds against law enforcement is the various territories. They are stationed throughout various cities in the US, making them more difficult to track. The strong presence of this gang makes them a larger threat. Let's go back to the 1960s in Chicago for this one. Gangster Disciple was formed when two black street gangs merged into one powerful force. The Black Disciples and the Supreme Gangsters came together to form a stronger unit and expand their influence. This widespread gang is spread out throughout various northeastern and Midwest states. It's believed that there are roughly 25,000 to 50,000 members. However, it's believed that during the 1980s, at one point, the gang had up to 90,000 members. This gang has a very violent reputation, being linked to crimes like extortion, drug trafficking, and murder. They have been linked to various attacks, including assassinations of their own members and their families. One of the most high-profile cases that Gangster Disciples have been linked to is the murder of U.S. Army Sergeant Juwan Johnson in 2005. In 2020, the gang was also linked to a shootout at a Chicago funeral home that injured 15 people. While there have been several arrests throughout the years, the gang still holds a strong influence across the U.S. As racial tensions grew throughout the 1960s, a prison gang was formed to combat them. But over the years, the Aryan Brotherhood became one of the deadliest. From fiercely loyal members to a strong hierarchy system, this is one gang that has been challenging for law enforcement to take down. One of the factors that makes the Aryan Brotherhood as threatening as it is that the members primarily operate from within the prison system. The number of members inside is believed to be larger than on the street. Members of this gang are also known for their extremity, especially when it comes to representing the Brotherhood. They will sport Nazi symbols and other symbols of white supremacy, with many members even getting these symbols tattooed on them. There have been many challenges for law enforcement in taking down this loyal gang. In 2002, 21 leaders of this gang were convicted, and law enforcement was pushing for the death penalty. While they were arrested, none of them were sentenced to death. In 2020, an investigation brought charges to over 100 members, which was a huge step forward for law enforcement. Today, it's believed that the Brotherhood has roughly 20,000 members, including the ones that are in prison. The last gang on our list is definitely not the least powerful. The Mexican Mafia, aka La M, is one of the oldest and strongest crime syndicates we're going to explore today. Their roots go back to 1957, when it was believed the gang formed in a California prison. Since then, their influence has expanded throughout 13 states. This gang stays strong by operating within and outside the prison system. While many of its members are locked up, there are even more on the streets taking care of business. The gang is known to control several neighborhoods in California where local gangs must pay a tax to operate there. La M's criminal enterprise includes a variety of operations, including drug trafficking, weapon trafficking, robbery, assault, murder, and extortion. For the most part, the Mexican Mafia members could trust each other, but that changed in 2002 when a high-ranking member cooperated as an informant. With more information on how the gang's hierarchy was formed, law enforcement could crack down on more members. But it looks like they still have a long road ahead of them. While roughly 400 members are in prison, there are thousands more operating on the streets. As we covered the gangs and crime syndicates still active in the U.S. today, it presented the threats that still linger within these communities. These criminal operations have a startling effect on society. Various illegal activities like drug and weapon trafficking, extortion, and assault leave residents fearing for their safety. There is also the threat of gang members recruiting youth from underprivileged neighborhoods. While gang culture is complex, law enforcement has been working around the clock to dismantle organized crime. Although they face many challenges, investigators have successfully brought several high-ranking members to justice to bring peace of mind to the communities. With active efforts and strong support from the community, law enforcement is one step closer to their goal of reducing the impact of organized crime. Before we head off, we wanted to thank you for staying with us until the end of this video. That's all we have for today. Stay tuned if you want to see more videos on organized crimes and the effects they have on society. We have more in store for you. Make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe to see what comes next.